Welcome to another episode of Women in Focus in our new season. And I looked back at all the women that we've been interviewing over the past 20 years. And I decided that I wanted to talk to one woman whom I had interviewed in 2005. She's going to bring that up herself, but I thought I will do it before she says that. And the reason why I chose to talk to her today is because there's a beautiful book that has been released. And I wanted to talk to her about that because this is the in thing right now, to talk about our history, and high time, I would say. So our woman in focus today is Karen Dosanjh, who is the VP of Marketing and Communication with OSI Digital, and has curated, written, and she's the author of this book. Karen, you're most welcome in our program. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm so humbled to be here.
You look beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And we match.
And we match. And we match. What a pleasure to be here in your presence.
Well, thank you. You know, 15 years ago we talked.
Yes.
And I was so enamored by the work that you're doing, were doing, are doing still. And I thought, you know, this book is something that is a passion of yours, right?
Yes.
Can we talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. But before that, I mean, 15 years later, it's the third time in my life that I've been interviewed by yourself. And each time it becomes even more meaningful and humbling for me.
Oh.
So I just wanted to start by saying that. What an honor to be here as part of Women in Focus once again.
Well, thank you so much. Now, the stories, the untold stories, the South Asian pioneer experience in BC, how did this come about? Because there are a lot of other books that are out there. Just recently, the government gave $1.14 million to preserve our history. And would this be a part of all that?
You know, we sure hope so. The goal is that this book is in every library and every classroom in BC. That is
Right.
the goal. So we hope that some of that funding goes toward this. But you asked about where the passion for this started. And
Yes.
I would say it started with a lot of curiosity. You know, growing up, you know, as part of an immigrant family, our parents were too busy to share stories about their journey and what it was
Yeah.
like when they came. They were too busy working, you know, multiple jobs. My dad was a mill worker for 35 years, and my mom
Wow.
a fish cannery worker.
Wow.
So, you know, we would get little bits and pieces of information about our history, but not a lot.
No.
And my dad passed away sadly early in 1997, and with him went all of his legacy, his story, his library of life went with him. And that's a big regret for me, to never have really heard from him.
Right,
You know,
sit
what
down
he-
and talk to him and ask
what
him.
his experience was like. And
Yeah.
so I think that triggered a lot of curiosity in me, and being able to put those pieces together through the voices of my aunts and uncles, and learning about Babaji Gyan Singh, who is a forefather of our family, who migrated in 1906.
Wow.
And he sponsored my dad, along with other key family members, whose job it was to bring the entire extended family over. And they made a lot of sacrifice to do so.
You know, people who came in the 1900s literally did have to make a lot of sacrifices. They could not bring their families over
Yes.
with them, their wives
Yes.
and their children,
Yes.
and had to make all the money, live like, you know, hermits,
Yes.
and send all the money back home so that their families could be, you know, fed.
Yes, it's, you know, I've touched on that in the book. It's what those early experiences were like. They were segregated from the rest of
Yeah.
the community. They were not welcomed with open
No.
arms. There was no welcome wagon to greet them. They lived in bunkhouses and were not assimilated into Canadian society. They were barred from facilities. They faced physical abuse. There were even organizations like the Asian Exclusion League that were rallying to keep Canada white. White Canada forever was their slogan. And they were trying to bar migration from India,
Yeah.
from China, and from Japan.
Right.
And so, you know, understanding what the climate was like for these earliest settlers was really the heart of this book, and very relevant today when you think about everything that's happening with Black Lives Matters, is that people want to understand what racial injustice looks like and what the impact has been, so that we need to understand what has taken place so that we don't repeat the mistakes of our past. And that was really important to me in this telling of these stories. And people may not know, there were race riots in Vancouver. There were race riots in Bellingham, chasing the Sikhs out of Bellingham. And so I've covered a lot of these. It was not an easy book to write. It was very difficult.
Must have made you very sad while you were doing all this, because history always has that impact on people. The sadness comes out of it because...
Yes, it did. It did. I have to tell you, there was a lot of sleepless nights because I was discovering things. They were documented in history, but it was never taught in our classrooms. We never learned about any of this. And I was uncovering a lot of it, trying to put the timeline together myself. I had heard about Mewis thing, but I didn't truly understand what had taken place. So, like I said, I would, share these stories and as they unfolded with my husband and say, did you know that this took place? Did you know? And, through that darkness, I believe came light, because I feel that the way that the book is written is in a digestible format, that somebody else can walk through the timeline, the first 40 pages, really explain the very first settlers who came in 1897, why they came, and then how they had gone back to Punjab to talk about this beautiful place called British Columbia, where there was, riches await and, jobs and potential, and they came, and the settlers came. But like you say, the door closed behind them because, once there was enough, they came for laborious jobs.
Right.
In the railway, in farming.
Difficult
jobs that no one else wanted to do. And the door was closed behind these predominantly men that were coming. They were not allowed to bring their families, their wives, or children. And laws were changed. The continuous journey regulation barred further immigration to come. It was a law of exclusion. So I learned a lot throughout this, and I understood now why there was gaps.
Right.
I also, wrote some history about my husband's grandparents.
Right. They were also early settlers.
Early settlers. Narayan Singh Dosanjh came in 1907, and Mahakaur came in 1929. And there's a gap there, right?
I bet. And so you wanted to find out
why. Yes.
I want to explore that and also take you back to your childhood too. Okay.
Yes.
But let's take a very short commercial break and come back to that. Karen Dosanjh is our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We're going to be right back.
To me, she's somebody I've always looked up to and always looked to for guidance, whether it be personal or professional dilemmas that I might have. She's sort of somebody in our family who's basically a rock, and she's always there for us.
I love Karen because she's my heart, she's my soul, and overall she's my soulmate and best friend. Yeah.
You're watching Women in Focus. Our Woman in Focus today is a dynamic young woman. Karen, you're most welcome in our program.
Thank you for having me.
You are a mass communications expert.
Yes, thank you.
How does your day start? What is a typical day for you?
Typical day in my field, it's very diverse. It changes all the time. I mean, it could be anything from developing an ad campaign, to dealing with the media on a specific issue.
Welcome back to Women in Focus. Karen Dosanjh is our Woman in Focus today, the curator, author of Untold Stories, the South Asian Pioneer Experience of British Columbia. You mentioned that it was very sad for you when your father passed away, that you never sat down and talked to him. Although you're in tech industry, and I'll come to that in our next episode, how were you interested in history? Why didn't you go into history and become a professor of history?
I had a passion for communications, and I'm a strong writer, and also in terms of public relations, and actually started working in the tech field on the marketing comm side. So that's sort of where I went in terms of my day job.
Yeah.
But I felt with this project that I had skills to lend, and I served as a volunteer project. I gave
Oh,
my
it was all
time.
volunteer time.
Full volunteer, because I do take on volunteer projects every year.
Right.
And so in 2019, I decided that this was going to be it. And I donated my time and my skills to produce this.
This whole book was
Yes.
written by you without a
Yes.
dime on you. So,
Yes,
okay.
and the reason why is, I wanted the revenue that, I would have made to go back into producing more books, to go into providing scholarships for children in schools that need them, and to, just to make sure that we are able to get the word out about this. It's a passion project. So this is what I'll leave behind as a legacy.
So let me take you back. Mom and dad, hardworking people, obviously both of them working so that kids could be brought up, give education to you guys. We come from, both you and I, come from a culture that is male predominant, boys are preferred. Although I must say that in our family, equally treated. How was that for you in your family?
Yeah, I'm the youngest of 5 children.
Okay.
And, grew up
The baby.
the baby of the family. And I think the baby, somehow is allowed to break some barriers and do things a little differently.
Lucky you.
Because, the parents are busy raising other kids. But, I'd say my father, always treated me very special and probably gave me a lot of the confidence that I have today.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I mentioned working class parents. It doesn't matter what job I've done.
Yeah.
Now being, having this title of VP of Marketing, those working class values have never left me. I treat my job with a blue collar ethic, and I think that has served me well too, because you're not above any work,
No.
right? You can lead the strategy and do all that, but somebody has to roll up their sleeves and do the heavy lifting and get their hands dirty, right? And so I feel like that has been something that, those are values that my parents have given me.
Given you, yeah.
Yeah.
You missed him when he passed away in 1997. Never had an opportunity to sit down and listen to his stories, but you spent time listening to other people's stories and you wrote them in this particular book.
Yes.
Did it in a small way sort of take that pain away for you?
It did. It really healed that, because I could hear his journey through their voices.
Beautiful.
And my father-in-law, Sarjeet Singh Dosanjh is 90 years old.
Wow.
Here we have this treasure sitting at our kitchen table. What a shame it would be for me to not ask him.
Yeah.
And this book truly was a love letter to my parents, my mother-in-law Gurdev Kaur as well. They are the last connection to Narayan Singh and Mahakaur, right? Through them, they brought their stories to life. Not just for me, not just for my children, but for the broader community. In fact, the Dosanjh story was on the front page of the Vancouver Sun.
Beautiful.
And which, really showed me that these are not just South Asian stories, these are Canadian stories.
Yep.
That are to be valued by
That's
all.
true.
So, I have also taken time to listen to my mom, who grew up in the partition, and, shared with me journeys of leaving her home as a child, carrying whatever it is that they had on their backs, watching people have to make the decision about leaving behind an elder or a child because they could no longer carry them. They were walking from Pakistan to India. So what a shame, again, it would be to not understand my mother's journey because I didn't take time to ask.
That's right.
So it's a message I'd like to leave behind to people, that you don't have to be a communications expert to do this. Everybody has the ability to document their family story and
That's
to
right.
take time to listen, because it goes with them. And,
Yeah.
these are living libraries, like I said.
You were talking about a marriage that took place between grandparents, right? And then him coming here and leaving his wife. And then there's a gap in between.
Yes.
Obviously, he would go back and maybe the child is born, but he couldn't see the child for many years.
Yes.
How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I think you're touching on a really important part of this, is the story of the pioneer corps, the women. Because many times, the men who migrated were heroes when
Yeah.
they went back home.
Yeah.
And you would often hear from the families, oh, Babaji,
Yeah.
you know, this is what Babaji was doing. And I would take time to ask, well, what about
BBG,
What
yeah.
about her journey? And well, she was just back home. Well, what was she doing? She was looking after the family. She was looking after the in-laws. She was managing sometimes farmland. She had a huge role to play, but yet she did not have the same status,
No.
you know, as the migrant man.
Right.
And then coming here, the women who had never worn dresses in their life, they were forced to conform. You know, they couldn't wear their beautiful, you know,
Suits.
customary clothing. No.
Yeah, Punjabi suits, none.
No, they were told that they would either have to leave those things behind or they would be burnt, you know, once they got here. And
Wow.
that's documented in the book. And they were forced to conform. There was a bit of practical adaptation that happened. So they knew that they had to wear dresses, so they would make them a little bit longer to cover their legs. And they still wanted to wear their dupattas to cover their heads, which was a sign of, you know, of their faith. And they would find ways. So, you know, there's over 1,000 photos collected in this book.
Wow.
And many of the women in the very first Pioneer Corps and what their experience was like. It was really fascinating and really, again, dear to my heart.
See, when you listen to stories like that, you don't see the depth in their plight at that time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I want to take a short break and come back and talk to you the future
Yes.
and how we can all, you know, be a part. We are part of history. So how can we preserve it and make our next generations look forward to looking at it with positive eyes, and let's inspire some people, eh?
Yes.
Karen Dosanjh is our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Karen Dosanjh is our Woman in Focus today. So Karen, we've talked about the book, we've talked about pioneers, and I didn't even talk about you. Hey, so last time when we talked about you and your marriage and kids. 15 years later, how old are the kids now?
So when we met, they were just babies.
Yeah.
And, you know, now I have, my older son is in second year university at UBC
Wow.
studying sciences, and my younger son is off to grade 11, you know,
Okay.
and they're operating in a new normal.
Yes.
And I think, you know, this project has really shown them that it's not just enough to do well. We,
Yes.
of course, do well, be successful in life, but also find ways to do good. That has been a mantra for us. It's not something that has been an expectation.
No.
My older son, all throughout his first year of university, we said, listen, you know, we're gonna support you. We're gonna put a roof over your head.
Right.
We're gonna even help pay for your schooling. We're gonna pay for your schooling, but we're gonna expect you to volunteer. Find something that you're passionate about and go give your time at least once a week.
Right.
And he said, on top of my busy course load, and we said, if there's a will, there's a way, you'll make it happen. And he did. And he continued, you know, all through the summer, and he will continue. That's what we expect, because that's how he's going to build character, you know. So of course he's going to learn and he's going to get some great knowledge, but it's the service that will build character, and we expect that from our boys. And, you know, raising boys in today's day and age, you know, you've got to raise them with empathy and care. And we've really tried to do that. We've tried to raise good humans. And
You've got to raise boys a little feminist too.
yeah, it's got to, some of that has to come through,
Yes.
right? And so we've tried to do that, and starting to see some of that sink in. So this book here is also a legacy to them. I hope that they read it, because they will go through it and see all the life lessons that I was hoping to leave for them.
What do you see your relationship with Aj Media Group in one way assisted you to get this book out, right?
Yes.
What is the future of this book? What do you see happening? What do you see our community doing with this book? Do you want to see this in every household? How can they have it?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So they can order the book through ajlegacy.com.
Okay.
And the future of the book is really to continue to spark conversations.
Would you make another one?
You know what? I think this took a huge toll on me personally. It was a lot of work, a lot of sleepless nights, and I think that it's a beautiful piece there. And
Yes.
how I see this continuing to come to life is, I'm giving lectures on this to universities.
Okay.
I'm speaking to schools. A lot of this is done virtually now in the COVID world.
I know.
But you know, that is how it will continue. And then people can learn from it, and really getting the book into the hands of our youth is the most meaningful. They're bombarded by negative images and negative stereotypes about our people and our culture, and it's time to change the narrative and have them understand what, you know, kind of the groundbreaking that took place by our pioneers, to understand that they didn't just get here. The opportunities that they have didn't just happen overnight, and let's not take them for granted. So that's really what's important to me about this book.
So today's generation needs to understand that when our community came here, they were not allowed to bring their families. We did not have right to vote until 1947. We were not allowed to bring our own families until 1958, when the immigration laws opened up for our community. So from 58 to 2020, look at where our community is sitting right now. Huge community. And if you look at in political field, a lot of politicians with the South Asian background. And I think we need to have our youth understand that gangs and violence and drugs is not, you know, everything.
Yes, there's another way.
There's another way. It's a positive way.
And honestly, it's the elders, right? I think COVID has also shaped the value of the importance of elders in our community, in our society, more than ever. And that transfer of knowledge from the elders to the youth. I'm just a conduit, you know, to that knowledge. And I think that's where I get the most, you know, fulfillment, is to go in and speak to the students in schools that need it, you know, that are getting other messages. How wonderful to bring in my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, to go speak to these kids and their eyes open up, you know? So I hope to continue doing more work like that.
Lovely. Karen, you know, amazing. Every time I talk to you, I am so impressed. And I thank you for coming to the studios. COVID time, you know, I'm not going to anybody's house. I'm at that age, so you guys have to come here. Thank you.
Thank you. You're a treasure, and stay healthy. We love you, Sushma-ji. Thank you.
Karen Dosanjh has been our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back.